Daddy. How's the babies? Hi, Mama. How you doing? Hey guys, hopefully you can see this. The light's going to be shifting because the sun's coming up, but this is my mountain, my little mountain range of sawdust. Last year I went and chased down all the wood mulch guys that I could find, gave them $20 a load, generally $20 a load. Sometimes they were really small loads, in which case I did not give them $20 a load because that was way too much. And so this year I can put in my row gardens. I've already got a lot of sawdust on the front row garden, so I'm going to show you that before my battery dies. Alright, here's the row garden. And you can see I've got a lot of wood mulch on it. And we do have some crabgrass, witchgrass type stuff coming up that needs to be weeded. I've just been so focused on getting the garden in that I haven't been able to do as much maintenance, so thank heaven for the wood mulch. I have the hoses down it already. And the way that I tilled this was with our little teeny tiny rototiller. Much easier this year because I did it in April. If I wait until May, when it's a little bit drier, a little bit warmer, very difficult to rototill my property. I wanted to use the big tractor again this year, but I didn't really want to take all my fences down, and I did want to see what having the animals on this all fall, what it did to the soil. And the spots where the animals were was definitely easier to till. Definitely looked like it had more worm activity and more aerated soil because there was more organic matter in it. We're set with 4 rows of cold season crops, which is beets, Swiss chard, some bok choy, some Chinese cabbage, lots of different types of beets. And then I just planted that one, which is a potato row. And then I put some spinach and other things on top of that because I use vegetables, leafy greens, as my mulch. So that's what that looks like. And this is what the rest of it looks like. I would have liked to have grazed the animals on this side while I was finishing this side. But the animals are kind of situated well right now. So instead of messing things up and spending extra time putting up a partial fence here and then trying to get them shade, I decided just to keep it easy and just do 1 row at a time. So hopefully that was helpful. Again, I think it's May 2nd. We have been eating out of the garden in the greenhouse. We have lots of milk from the goats. We butchered a sheep about 2 weeks ago. We're about to butcher a pig on Thursday. So those are the foods that we have coming in right now. Hi, baby. So these guys are old enough to graze, and you can see there is a pretty big difference between the garden with all the mulch and the side of the garden that had not been planted. And so they are keeping all of the grass down, and they will be more interested in it the older they get. They are still on bottles. So mostly right now they're just nibbling on things instead of doing a massive amount of grazing. So the reason why this looks packed down instead of looking like mulch is because this is where the goats ate all fall. And so we would put the feed along the outside of the fence here. The goats would put their heads through and eat there, and then they'd poop all up and down here. And so there's no weeds. That's how I lasagna garden, is by putting my animals where I want no weeds and allowing them to poop and eat in the same place for an extended period of time. The difference you'll see is that over here, this is a spot along a fence, and you can see where the goats were eating up to about there, and then it became more sparse. You can still see some manure, some poop, and what was happening here is they were putting their heads through and eating the grass and the willows on the outside of the fence. So it still got walked on, it still got pooped on. When you get to the spots where they weren't grazing as densely, like right here, you can see there's a pretty big change. See that? spending a lot of time eating here, spending a lot of time eating here. And then we hit this spot where they weren't really reaching through to graze as much. And same thing, you come down, and then you get to some spots where they weren't grazing at all. And you can see it almost looks like a lawn. So I either need to come and cut this and take the weeds down before they seed, or I need to bring in more mulch. So these are my perennial annual beds. The beds themselves are perennial, the crops in them are annuals. You can see I have put in digger links to mark where the row is. I put wood chips in between the rows as I plant the rows. And you can see they're sunk beds. The reason they are sunk beds is so that you can retain water into them. We've had a lot of frost this year, and even though I planted frost-resistant crops, some of them have been more damaged by the frost than others. You can see those look a little dried out. That's because they actually froze, and I think those might have been some of my beets. So even with frost-resistant crops, you get losses. These are peas and Swiss chard. Swiss chard is pretty hardy. And this is peas and tatsoi and bok choy. And you can see I'm leaving some of the weeds in. I don't really want the grass in here, but the lamb's quarters, I'll show you down here. The lamb's quarters and the pigweed is invaluable as pig food. See, that's what they look like. And there's a whole bunch of them. And I need to water the garden today. And instead, I don't know, I could just pull those up and then that would make life a lot easier for me later, but it wouldn't give me any pigweed to feed the pigs. Okay, so you can see I've got really sparse grass coming up here right on the edge. And so what I've done, you can see I've added another layer of sawdust to the edge. I've added sawdust to the end, and I'll probably add more to each row because you can just see I've got a little bit of grass coming up there on the edges. Okay guys, this is what it looks like. We're a couple weeks out from my last video. You can see we've got tatsoi and peas there, and then on this side, I think this one is a type of cabbage, and on that side that hasn't really come up yet, we got potatoes. Apparently, the seed that I put in here was not terribly viable because I did put in seed to act as a weed barrier, and it's very sparse. I believe it was Savoy spinach. So, there's my potatoes coming up, but I really wish I had something else in here to eat besides the potatoes. It's nice to be able to harvest something all year instead of just having one big harvest at the end, because that whole time you have to keep that darn thing weeded. You might as well be weeding by eating. So lots and lots and lots of greens in here, lots of greens in there, and peas. And you can see that I am just adding more mulch and leaving it. I let it settle on its own. This was my first application in this row. You can see it's flat. It's easy to walk in because it settled on its own. And you can see I'm getting a little bit of grass and a little bit of bindweed popping up. So I am putting more on. You can see the difference between one that needs to be done and one that I just finished. And this other one over here, I put another application on last week, and so this one has settled a little bit. Let's see. Okay, so these ads that I have coming up from Paul Wheaton, I want to be really transparent about them. I get paid, I think, $42 for each ad that I put up for him, and I put up 2 ads a month, just 2. So I make $84 a month. His ads are about permaculture and that kind of thing. The ad coming up this month in May is about a pizza oven made out of cob, a rocket stove pizza oven type of a thing. It looks pretty cool. I don't know if I'm going to have time to sit down and make one, but they did send me the PDFs for that. So if you're interested in that, I'll put a little bit of a blurb behind this, or you can just check it out in the link below. It's not going to go to Paul Wheaton or Wheaton Labs or anything like that. It's a site specific to this particular PDF and this oven. So looks cool to me. Again, I don't know if I'll have time to do it because I'm putting in a garden, but thank you for not being frustrated with me about these ads. I appreciate Paul's support and him offering to put some ads on my channel. It's nice to feel seen by people in the community where, oh, I wonder if this would help her. I like what she's making. I feel good about my stuff being on her channel. And so again, I really appreciate Paul for that.